people are seeing that we're taking market share. We're an exciting new company. They're seeing a company that is making waves, doing things differently, doing things properly. You know, we're being recognized for building exciting adventure vans, quality adventure vans. And I would say that we are like getting people from other companies coming to us, looking for opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, you know, I think that's something we've prided ourselves on. From an entrepreneurship perspective, it's a warm feeling because you feel like you're doing something and it's working. And this is what we set out to do, you know, so it's pretty cool.
Hello, everyone. I am Jeffrey Stern, your host of today's O.H.I.O Fund Report with Tony Alexander and Daryn Hillhouse, co-founders of Remote Vans. Remote Vans is redefining the premium adventure van category by blending high-quality craftsmanship with the technology and design required for the modern lifestyle. Tony and Daryn's journey captures a classic entrepreneurial arc, from piecing together their first custom van in a brewery at the height of the pandemic to scaling operations at their state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Remote Vans is now producing meticulously designed, technologically advanced camper vans at scale. And it is also where our conversation took place today. Through it, we will explore Tony and Daryn's entrepreneurial lessons, transitioning from custom builds to dealer-focused manufacturing at scale, the commitment to innovation and to quality that permeates Remote Vans' brand, the power of community, the nuances of building an automotive company in Ohio, and leading in an industry shaped by evolving consumer preferences, and ultimately the enduring appeal of adventure. Tony and Daryn here gave an awesome account and reflection of Remote Vans, and provide a compelling example of Ohio's entrepreneurial spirit, manufacturing might, and an adventure lifestyle. So please enjoy this conversation with Tony and Daryn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the O.H.I.O Fund Report, a show dedicated to raising the collective ambition of Ohio. Before we dive in, just a quick note. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Nothing you hear today should be taken as investment advice, a recommendation, or an offer to buy or sell any securities. Today's guests are the founders of one of the O.H.I.O Fund's portfolio companies, meaning there is a financial interest in the company being discussed. As always, views expressed by our guest are their own and don't necessarily reflect those of the O.H.I.O Fund or its affiliates. Any forward-looking statements you hear today are based on current expectations and may change. Please do your own research and consult with your advisors before making any investment decisions.
So I'm always thinking about where the best place to start these conversations is. And I feel like when most people think about the startup journey, they will envision, two kind of founders working in a garage, kind of scrappily piecing together an MVP, hoping that one day they aspirationally get to, an actual facility where things are streamlined and they're producing at scale. And in a lot of ways, that kind of is the journey.
Yeah.
And so I'm very excited here today to unpack, the evolution of Remote Vans from you two scrappily piecing together this van out of a brewery in Cincinnati to taking it to where we are here today. So thank you for joining.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So yeah, appreciate
Absolutely.
it. It really, you described, I think the stereotypical journey that you describe for entrepreneurs is like, it started in a garage, and that's true sometimes. But for Daryn and I, it's literal. It was one van and one table. Started at the height of COVID, when this van life industry was kind of taking off and seeing a new horizon. We joke that it happened very slowly to us over time. It took multiple years to get to this point, but in a lot of ways, looking back on it, it feels like it kind of happened all at once. And it has been a very interesting journey, to say the least.
Absolutely, yeah.
So by way of introduction here, Tony, you have this kind of eclectic background in startups and accelerators and kind of the entrepreneurial ecosystem.
Yep.
And Daryn, you've been been in the British Army. You've organized these vast tours of vans in Africa, and ultimately have crossed paths here in Cincinnati. Tell us a little bit about the story of how it is that you two came together to ultimately start Remote Vans.
Yeah, Daryn. I mean, the short version that Daryn can expand on is there was an organization I was involved with in Cincinnati called the Brewery, which was a startup accelerator. Daryn ultimately had a company that went through that where we got closer, but even before that, he was looking to replicate his road rally experience in the U.S., and I'll let him kind of tell that story, that journey.
Yeah. I'm trying to think when it was. It was, I think, the very first...
It was 2013.
2013, I came over. So Road Trippers was going through Brandery at the time, became a very successful app based here in Cincinnati. I had been thinking about coming to America. It always been a dream of mine since I was very, very young, since about 9. And I was invited over just to come and have a look to see if this would be something that I would enjoy. And coming from South Africa at the time in 2013, it's quite a pivotal moment in South African history. It's when Nelson Mandela had just passed away. And I arrived in Cincinnati, really liked everything that I was seeing, and it was all coming together. And I went for a walk at about 5 a.m. in the morning, and I remember walking between Vine and Main Street.
It was on Walnut.
Walnut,
just south of Liberty. Yeah.
Walnut. I turned around the corner and walked down the street in Walnut, and there was this massive mural of Nelson Mandela that had just popped up overnight, freshly painted and everything. And it was this big mural, and I was like, oh, there's my sign.
There's a sign.
And I just went with it from there. So, yeah, I mean, it committed to it, and then moved over, and and then went through the Brandery, and I guess we'll talk through how everything else evolved from there. But it was a pretty straightforward entrepreneurial journey. It's like, here's an opportunity, lifelong ambition, and then went for it. Had a sign and then went for it.
At the time, even for multiple years after that, so Daryn went through the Brandery with an events company, similar but like a tangent off of what he had done before, but continued to run the road rally
from here.
Yeah, from here, traveling back. During. So we had 5 to 7 years to develop a friendship, just being buddies when he's here in town most of the time. So when COVID hit, it was obviously very impactful to someone trying to run a road rally through multiple countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And at the time, I wasn't doing as much with Main Street Ventures and Brander anymore. So we both found ourselves with kind of skill sets that complemented each other very well. And just through a series of events outside of our control, in a lot of ways, not really having anything to do. So, when you have two entrepreneurs that are in a room.
I think also like we were at a point in our lives where we had been used to working, doing, running our businesses off laptops anywhere in the world. And I know Tony's told me that one of the most inspirational stories that he shared with me was you traveled on a shipping container.
Not in the shipping container. I did a trip around the world without using an airplane, so I just kept going west.
Wow.
So it was all boats and trains. In the Pacific portion was a ship. I was a guest on a ship.
And he went on his own, which is that's an adventure. You know what I mean? And I had a deep passion for taking other people on adventures and showing them Africa. And so we, sitting in COVID and having lockdowns and not being able to do that was, I think, a pivotal moment. And Tony came up with the idea of building a sprinter van, an adventure van, and I so distinctly remember we were talking the one night over dinner saying, let's place an order for one. And at the time we phoned Mercedes and they said, oh man, it's going to be an 8-month waiting list to get one. And you could literally see the light bulb going off. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
And then from there, you just start unraveling the layers of the onion. You're just like, because these are really popular. Why they're really popular? Because people are building adventure vans in them. What are adventure vans? And then we went down and down and down. Eventually, we were like, hey, well, it would be far easier just to buy one. One that is, capable of work on the road and fulfilling our passion of travel. And I remember you saying there just isn't one there. And wouldn't it be cool to build one that had the communications capabilities? And I mean, from there, it's just brainstorming, and we could do this, and yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up that first van, because I just traded emails with that very first van that we bought, sold it to a gentleman who lives in Boston. He's coming back to get some upgrades. So I think like next week or the week after, van 1, like that van with that, Daryn and I have a picture of us in masks at the height of COVID picking up the van. We'll actually be back in the factory in a week or two, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
and we number all of our builds. So even 120 plus vans later, Tom will pull into this factory with 001 on his door.
He's very proud of it. So it's awesome,
Yeah. Well, and not to relive the pandemic, but I really love that you've captured, as people were either getting into sourdough or starting a podcast, there was the spirit of adventure that you guys actually ran with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then like you said, to take it back to starting in a garage, we were fortunate enough to be able to have access to a large building. We were in a dark corner. It was damp. It was raining. It was dark. And we put our van there, and then we went shopping, and we bought a toolbox and some power tools. And there's some awesome photographs that we have of the very first table that we bought plywood and built the first table. And that was just the catalyst for all of it from there. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about these things, but just trying to put together a van company, if there ever were two people who just about tried every single possible way of building a van, that's how we started. There wasn't a playbook on how to do it. There wasn't a recipe book on how to build a van.
Well, if you think about it in the context of a book, and you were to outline the chapters of remote vans as it is today, and we were talking before about how perhaps the first chapter is figuring out how to build a van, and then figuring out how to build a van well.
Yeah.
And then ultimately scaling it. And then we can talk about, the future chapters. But I think there are really interesting themes in each of those buckets. And I'd love for you to just kind of take us through those chapters.
Well, there's a whole other bucket, I think, that you're not mentioning, which is you can learn how to build a great van. The other bucket is learn how to sell it and learn what this industry is.
Yes,
and there's lots of examples of, especially during COVID, of companies that were created and they built great vans, but they either priced it wrong, or they didn't get into the right dealers, or they tried to sell direct to consumers. So it's been a learning process the whole way. We are both of us have very deep experience in general entrepreneurism in our own niches, but neither of us came with specific knowledge when it came to building an assembly line or selling through a network of dealerships. So we've had to learn everything on the fly.
Or even manufacturing.
So manufacturing in general.
As we go into this chapter that requires an acute knowledge on how to build and scale this type of business, we're learning, but we're learning at such a rapid rate. And that, I think that's what keeps this interesting,
There's I was just to say, there's that old adage in entrepreneurism and startups where it's like, if you're not embarrassed by what you shipped a year ago, you waited too long to ship it. And if there's been one thing true, I mean, we build amazing vans, but they always get better so much fast. Like the stuff we're building today, we're just getting exponentially better at this every year. And so it's cool to see that all kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, it's, I would say, we have pretty deep conversations around it. The 2020 is hindsight. Well, the hindsight is 2020. And you look back at well, if we started a van company today, we'd do it like this. Mm-hmm. And that's, I mean, it would be entirely different, I guess. But there's no harm in doing, the way that we did it. We wouldn't have the knowledge and I guess the passion to make the changes and do the things that we're doing now if we hadn't done those difficult things in the early days.
It's the earned wisdom
100%.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Did you know at the time that you wanted to start a van company, or were you just solving this own desire you had to, find?
No, I think within the first, from the very early days, it was we wanted a van company. Now, when I say that, it's not the company, it's not what we're sitting in right now and what we are. That was not the original plan. And if we'd known more, it might have been the original plan. But because we went into this not knowing, we wanted to be a custom builder. I think we had an original goal of 52 a year, in the next 3 or 4 years, 1 a week. We can get to that. But I think, again, you don't know what you don't know. We learned pretty quickly that was not a business that we necessarily wanted to be in. So it took us a little bit to figure that out. And along the way, we're learning how to build great vans.
Yeah.
It's just the type of industry where to get where we wanted to go, you have to be building at scale. And in order to build at scale, you got to tick certain boxes and do certain things. And that set us on the journey of where we're at today.
I think the other really, really important thing is that we kept it nimble early. And so as this market was changing in those early days, like there was this massive rush in, the COVID times, everything grew really, really quickly. But it also meant that once that calmed down, things were also going to change dramatically. And so we've been lucky to not get ahead of ourselves and just adapt all along the way, whether it's our product, whether it's building custom vans or deciding to go down the route of doing production vans. All of those things, it was just a growth experience. It's just like, as you did this, you realized, okay, I think we're going to have to go in this direction. And so it just, the route to the success that we've achieved thus far has been kind of unveiled to us as we've gone along, So it's, in a way, I think we've kind of set an end goal where we want to get to. And how we get there is definitely not being clear the whole time, but you develop and you iterate and you go, and it reveals itself as you go.
What is this North Star that has revealed itself through the opacity that is now clear to you guys?
Well, I think in general, it's scale. I mean, we have ambitions to get this to a certain size of company that would be hard to do. If you're selling limited volumes, you'd have to sell them at such a high cost. There's the universe of people to buy that isn't there. So in order to get to scale, you've got to work with dealerships. And so all these things have to happen that we have spent the last probably 2 years of our journey building up to where we're at now. So yeah, it all kind of works backwards from, we know where we kind of want to go.
Yeah.
And in order to get there, we have to execute this playbook.
Yeah, I think also when we started out, we looked at the state of the market and we looked at what the pain points were. And unequivocally, the major thing that every single person in this industry was talking about was the lack of quality. So as people were struggling to find labor, I'm talking about the major players in the industry, they couldn't find the people to build the vans quick enough with the demand. And so naturally, quality starts dropping. And there in itself is a massive opportunity for folks like us to come in and go, okay, well, the founding principles of our business are going to be quality above all else. And so now, having committed to that 4 years ago, we're now, 5 years ago, we're now in our 5th year, and it's now starting to pay dividends because we've established the brand and our credibility is based off of building really high-end quality vans. So yeah, I think we've always kept that as a North Star. It's just like, do not compromise on quality for anything. And so we still hold true to that today.
Yep.
How would you describe the market that you're operating in? Who are the people that are involved in this space? Who are the people that are drawn to adventure vans? And what is kind of the context and history of how it has evolved over time? And with that, the role that you'd like for remote vans to play within it?
Well, I think if you're talking like on the customer side, what we're seeing is kind of a generational change in what people are into. So, in kind of the older generation was attracted to, the dream was always like a big Class A bus, drive it around open road.
I think that's what a lot of people think of when they think
of
RVs.
that is kind of dying. And even with, the 60 plus crowd, they're drawn now more and more each year to Class B and maybe some smaller Class C type products, which just to give the listeners a little bit of context. So there's basically 4 types of motorhomes. Class A's are the big buses. Class C's are anything over 30-ish feet, basically. Most of the time they'll have a bed over the cab. It's kind of a distinctive feature of a Class C. And then you've got towables and fifth wheels, which are kind of their own thing. Mm-hmm. And then Class B is basically a van, anything in the van footprint. And I think, people are gravitating towards it, especially the younger generation. They're easier to drive. They can fit in a driveway. People potentially don't have as big houses or a lot of space. They can fit in a normal parking spot, so they're just easier to get around and go off on a weekend adventure. So it's kind of the way in which people use these types of vans has changed, or use motorhomes over the past years has changed. So the type of vehicle, I think, that they gravitate. So
Yeah.
we're kind of riding that wave.
Yeah, and then also you have this, I sort of would term it hashtag van life 2.0. It's like this entirely new person that is coming into van life, and I would say that's your working professionals. These are your nomads, your digital nomads. They're they're your real estate agents. It's your accountants. It's bankers, investment bankers. So talking about one of our early customers was an investment banker, and he would hang the screens in his van, and he would sit there trading inside the van. It's amazing. And so, pitching ourselves as a technology-focused van company, having the latest of tech in, it appeals to a whole new demographic of people that are now getting into, what is a traditional American fabric of, our culture is road tripping. And so, man, you just got these two great worlds of experienced RV users with decades of experience who are now all moving into smaller units and more nimble and getting into places they couldn't go with the big vehicles. And a younger crowd that is, off the back of COVID, being stuck indoors, are going, I'll never let that happen again, and value the outdoors far more with, taking their kids and the family with. So it is, I would say, a growing industry for sure. Certainly the van space, every day, it's just more and more people are looking for this lifestyle, which is great.
Pulling on the lifestyle thread, and I think as important as quality and craftsmanship is to the product itself, I know that you and the company cares a lot about the brand and the kind of narrative and the story that goes with going on adventures. How do you describe what the brand is and what it stands for?
Well, I think it starts with, the name. Obviously, it's kind of like a double meaning. Remote, when we first started it, we wanted to build the ultimate van for the work remote lifestyle. That has since expanded. I think we still have the best van for somebody who, at least for part of their journey, can work remotely. But the remote also means like you're going someplace and you're taking your lifestyle and you can go someplace and put it as remote as you want to get it. But as Daryn kind of mentioned, that has since to come to represent is far broader than just those. It's the quality that we put into it. And
yeah, we talk about the work, play, travel lifestyle, and really, so you're appealing to folks who are looking for a certain lifestyle. Like traditionally, the van space was, let's say, occupied 80% by companies who are marketing their vans as these great big, like, off-road. It can go anywhere because it's got the best suspension and all these things, and it's got all these accessories. And and that appeals to, I would say, a segment of the market for sure. We just wanted to give a voice or a product that is for everybody else. That's not to say that we didn't throw on the best and most capable suspension system that you can get on a van. Our vans can match any off-road focused van company. But what else can it do? Well, it's got the latest technology in it. It's got the latest communications on it. So you can go anywhere and work from anywhere, whether it's like the top of the highest mountain range in Colorado, whether you're at the beach in San Diego, whether you're deep in a forest, whether it can go anywhere. So I think to Tony's point, like, remote means a lot of different things. From a lifestyle perspective, I think, whether you're grandparents and you just want to take the grandkids for an ice cream at the beach, we made sure that, like, the seats that we had could achieve that the different components in you could achieve that. Whether you're a young family and you're taking your kids camping for your first camping trip, making sure that, there was enough sleeping space for parents and for kiddies. And whether you're a solo traveler, whether you are a YouTuber wanting to run a podcast from the van, this van can do all of that. So we just choose to focus on the lifestyle. This van can do all these things. And if you do get the customer who says, well, what about going off-road? Yeah, well, let me tell you about the suspension. It can do everything, So yeah, we've really gone for the lifestyle van, which I think is, again, #vanlife 2.0. That is the new, I would say, group of folks. So we have a group on Facebook called the Rolling Nomads. And that's where we brought all our customers and aspiring customers in one place where they can ask each other questions about like, hey, I want to live this type of lifestyle. How are you finding a remote van so far? So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, very community oriented.
Yeah, it's very community oriented. Yeah, for sure.
So I would be remiss, I think, to not acknowledge the space that we are, literally in, as we talked about the North Star of scale.
Yeah.
How have you two thought about that specifically, the craftsmanship, quality being the goal that goes into, a process and a facility that can handle, the aspiration that you guys have for the company?
Well, it was a big shift for us, starting where we did. We would, to simplify it, we would build to the van. So we would pull the van into like a little bay, and then we would bring all the parts to it and spend months and months and months building it. And that's what we knew how to do. That's how we started the company, and that's how we learned to build vans. So coming into this space, which was a former steel processing plant that, we had to clean it out, we had to renovate it, and we put a lot of resources into building this into a great foundation for assembly line production, which was a whole another adventure in how to figure out. Now we are what you call building to the shelf. So we build all the materials for the van, put it on the shelf, and then we have to learn how to efficiently roll these vans down the line and get them through as quickly as possible while maintaining that level of quality that we've talked so much about. So that was Daryn spearheaded that whole process. So you could probably speak more into how incredibly hard it was.
No, I mean, it's fun. Like, it genuinely is fun. Like, so when we started off, we're not a traditional RV company in that we're based in Elkhart, sort of the mecca for RV building, right? So starting out, we didn't have this deep pool of RV builders that we could recruit from. So every single person, and I would even say even to this day, we have not recruited anybody who has come from the RV industry. So right from employee number one who came in, he was a sous chef. And we were like, hey, Mitch, you're going to have to learn how to do upholstery. And he was like, well, fine, YouTube. And he sat and he learned how to do upholstery, and he practiced. And for the best part of 3 years, he was our lead upholsterer. And we would hire folks, and he would train them. And that's true for pretty much every single thing here. Yes, we've tried to find mechanics, but we've never found somebody who's been a mechanic from the RV industry. And I think that's a hallmark of building a company here in Cincinnati, in Ohio, and a hallmark of this business is that we've not done it the easy way. You take folks in, you spend the time, and you invest the time and train the folks and give them like real skills. And where we are today, that's pretty much how we have operated the entire time. Today, we're fortunate to be in a position where we can now start cross-training people. So, if we've taken somebody and trained them to be a plumber, we now have the capacity to cross-train them in upholstery or into cabinetry, because we've fundamentally, like Tony is saying, we've fundamentally changed the way that we build vans today, and that allows us to get somebody to go and do mechanical work underneath the van for a week, and then in the following week they can go and do the upholstery or finishing, whatever it is. And it's rewarding because it keeps people interested, and they feel like, I think they feel valued because we're investing in them and we care about keeping them here,
And we've certainly, all that's true from the production side. As we've gotten more cachet and recognized in the industry, we are now starting to pull specific executive level roles from other RV. So we've had people moving from Texas, from Utah, from Alabama, moving up to Cincinnati or working here primarily a lot of the time.
I think that we've grown to a point where people are seeing that we're taking market share. We're an exciting new company. They're seeing a company that is making waves, doing things differently, doing things properly. We're being recognized for building exciting adventure vans, quality adventure vans. And I would say that we are like getting people from other companies coming to us looking for opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah.
And, I think that's something we've prided ourselves on. From an entrepreneurship perspective, it's a warm feeling because you feel like you're doing something and it's working, and this is what we set out to do. So it's pretty cool.
I mean, the gravity of talent really only comes from the compounding of the reputation of the company and your commitment to quality.
Yeah, and people, and I think sometimes people underestimate, for instance, like some skill sets, it's difficult to find in Ohio, but when you do find somebody who's really talented and who wants to move and they're prepared to uproot their entire family and move to Ohio, that speaks volumes.
Oh, absolutely.
They believe in the vision, believe in what you're doing. So, yeah, it's rewarding in that sense. Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned the entrepreneurial journey and really the evolution of remote vans over time, perhaps from custom to mass manufacturing, from the brewery to a facility. And had you known what you know now, you may not have done a lot of the things the same way.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask about some of the entrepreneurial lessons that you've learned along the way, especially both having been entrepreneurs and gone through this process before. What are the new learnings that you've taken with you from this journey?
Well, I mean, to your point, I'll say ahead of time that I don't think we would be where we are today if we hadn't learned the hard lessons that we did along the way.
Right.
It's easy to look back and lament, some of the hard times that you went through, but I think that every single step of this journey has kind of taught us in many different ways. But yeah, just from a general standpoint, I'll speak for myself. Like, my experience had nothing ever to do with manufacturing, very limited on physical products. I was in tech and, online stuff and venture. So just dealing with, I guess, two things struck me that I had to learn, and don't want to speak for Daryn, but I think it was both of us. When it comes to a business like this, the cash flow swings are massive. Physical products like this, especially in the RV industry, an auto company is capital intensive. That's just a hallmark of it. So as we've grown bigger and bigger, managing that cash flow has been a very big learning experience. Just so many dollars in inventory and to build these things, and it's expensive. And then also just the workforce that we've built up was I've never had to manage mechanics or welders and stuff like that. So there was certainly some learning experience there that came with that, and it just came over time. We've kind of earned the experience and where we're at today.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a running joke that we've had for the last year is, knowing what we know now, it would have been far easier just to buy any adventure van and take it apart and figure out how it's all done and then put our own spin on it. And the reality is we didn't, because we were setting out to be a custom van company, and so we watched a lot of DIY van builders, and we're like, okay, cool, that's how you do that, and we would do it. And then just naturally over time, through going, oh, well, that's not a smart way to do things, let's try this. Okay, that works, but it's not efficient to scale. And so we progressed through all these different, it's true in any startup, speed. And so like I'm often on the floor, just speed. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. It's that old Winston Churchill quote of like, no action is worse than a bad action, so, or inaction, just do it and figure it out along the way. And so the early days very much were, you'd take a piece of plywood and hold it up and then trace it and then cut it by hand and then put it together, and eventually you progress and you have a CNC machine that cuts it perfectly for you. So yeah, rapid iteration has probably been a hallmark of our business. And even today, we were talking about it earlier, is just saying, we took delivery of our first 3D printer this week. And that is part of that spirit that we've nurtured here, is just like, if you can't do it this way, find a way. And if it means getting a 3D printer, print it, test it, works, cool, go. And being flexible and nimble to just do things like that is I think it's a nod to the type of people we have who have bought into that philosophy of the way we do things, for sure.
Well, with that philosophy and a nod towards the future and maybe the chapters to come, What are you two most excited about? How do you think about what success means?
I think success is, I mean, obviously you can measure the success on, profits and revenue and number of vans sold, but I mean, that's not really what does it for me. Like, I really get a kick out of seeing every single van that we build, it just gets better. Like, it excites me to be able to look back on where we were and where we've come to. And, the team that we've built as well, is, I know it's cliche to say it's like a family, but like, we've really, have a core team in this company that I'm really, really proud of. So, I think we have high aspirations for where we want to take the company, but I'm proud and feel kind of fulfilled just based on the journey that we've taken thus far. And not that we're going to stop, but
well,
yeah,
even where we are today, the reason why we're having this, we're at this juncture in our business, not even a juncture, it's like a growth point.
Yeah.
We are embarking upon something new for the rest of this year, and today is the beginning of that, the introduction of a new, our 2026 models. And comparing the two, the jump between 25s and 26s, and you look at the amount of innovation that has gone into this new lineup that we are now launching is, I would say, monumental compared to where we started. So year one of production vans, which we're now at the end of year one, I think we've achieved incredible things, but we were learning on how to build good vans. And now it's almost like, well, we graduated that. Now we're turning pro and says, okay, let's look at every single part. And that's what we've done over the last 2 months, 3 months. Looked at every single component in this van and go, how do you take this thing to the next level? And so, in just, I think we were talking about it earlier, just nearly 100 changes, both big, small, visual, or behind the panels, things you can see and can't see. It's just, it is such a monumental change in how we used to do business to what we are going to be doing going forward. And I think we are now getting the buy-in from everybody. People are seeing our vision, seeing where we want to go, and that is what we set out from the very beginning. We had this conversation when we were starting out to build that first van. It was a promise to build the best Class B adventure van in America, and I think now it is a warm feeling when you start hearing dealers and when you hear potential customers coming to shows and meeting our sales team and meeting us at shows, and they're saying, yeah, that is the best quality van in America today. So it's awesome because we take that and we share it with the people who work for us. I get everybody around and we talk to them in a monthly team meeting and we say, do you guys realize what the feedback is out on the ground? You guys should feel proud of what you're doing, what we are doing as a group. So it's a great testament to what we've achieved so far.
I mean, that's the same energy that feeds the gravity for talent on the customer side of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, that conversation right there just pulled a very strange memory, but that I feel is relevant. One of my favorite books is the Art and Zen of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Yep.
and quality is really like at the heart of that book, but the examination of every single part and the importance of, a single screw or module.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the commitment to quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was quite reassuring to hear, we've had a number of our dealer partners flying to Cincinnati and spending some time with us this week. And something that really stood out at dinner last night is they were saying, through all the innovation, through all the tour that we gave them and explaining on why we changed this, what we changed, and all these different things, not once did we, and this is inadvertent, not once did we say, oh, we changed that in order to save cost, which I think is maybe, we don't often see it from the dealer perspective, our dealer partners. But to just get an insight like that, because they probably hear that over and over whenever they tour other manufacturer facilities. And I think like the core of what we've done is just the aspiration to put out a better product every time. And sometimes, we probably look at it in hindsight and go, oh man, we didn't realize that we spent a bit more there.
Yeah.
But overall, I think what drives us is to stick to that North Star of like, we want to have the best van in this industry, and a lot of people want to own the best van in the industry, and that's
Yeah, and you talked about what it means success, and I think you articulated it well. Like, if somebody came to Daryn and I and said, "Look, you're not going to make as much money as you thought you were going to work, or you thought you were going to do, but at the end of the day, you will be recognized as building the best adventure van in America, and you'll have a team that is talented and has great jobs and are really excited to come to work every day." I mean, I think we would both consider that success.
Yeah.
But I think that if we can do those things, then the revenue and the sales and the profits, those will come. So if you do it the right way and you achieve success in that manner, all the other stuff just kind of comes with it.
Yeah. I mean, we set out, I remember talking about who do we want to be compared to? And we said, okay, we'd like to be known as the Aston Martin of the van industry. We don't want to be known as like this massive volume producer. We, set number of vans a year. We want our customers to have vans that hold their value. So we're like, okay, cool. That's what we want to do. That's what we've set out to achieve. And when we achieve that, we're good. And there's something in that, I think.
Yeah. So when the next James Bond is riding a remote van, you'll have made it.
I mean, Q has a lot more room in an adventure van to put all the toys, all the, all the stuff. So yeah, I'd welcome it.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's awesome. Well, but as we work to bookend the conversation here, I'll ask kind of a blank, question of, when you reflect on the journey, do you feel there's what's left unsaid? What do you think is particularly important that comes to mind that we haven't really talked about in this journey?
That's a great question. You've probably used that question before and got some good answers out of it.
Yeah, I have.
I think your previous question got me thinking. I had never really kind of articulated in my mind the way that Daryn and I just articulated what success kind of meant to us. That was the first time I kind of put all those pieces together where it's like, no, it really is just building the best van. So, that would have been a really good answer to that question had we not just used that in the previous question. But no, I think, maybe what's left unsaid is that we are trying to, in a lot of ways, build an industry here in Cincinnati, in Southern Ohio, that doesn't exist. I mean, we have our friends at Airstream up the road at Jackson Center, but it's basically just them and us. There's other custom builders in Ohio. So trying to build a whole industry, motorhome manufacturing in Southwest Ohio, has been a big lift. So having partners like the O.H.I.O Fund, with the resources you guys can bring to bear, has just been enormously helpful. And, it's that is the whole next step. I mean, we took 5 years to learn how to build an amazing singular motorhome company. But if we could look back 20 years from now and we have, other companies sprout up in the area and we have a whole little industry of motorhome manufacturing in our corner of Ohio, I think that would be kind of another level of success.
So two closing questions then. I mean, part of the spirit of what we're hoping to accomplish with these kinds of conversation is how to raise the collective ambition of Ohio. And you've talked about just there creating an entire new industry in this place. Also, what do you feel if you had, the magic wand to change something, across the state related to remote vans or otherwise? What would you kind of ascribe to what Ohio should be thinking about to raise the bar for ambition?
I mean, I have a very specific example, and I feel I can speak to this because I come from that world. At least in Cincinnati, we have set up a lot of both public and private resources and organizations to help foster the startup community. They are very much focused on tech and biotech, for good reason. I mean, those on the investment side have some of the highest multiples if you can get a lucky strike and strike gold. There is not a lot of organizations out there that are geared towards helping manufacturing and light industrial and those type of things. And I really think that is a key component to the future job market for the economy of the state of Ohio. So, if anybody is listening to this that is in a position, whether it's a city government position or nonprofit or venture position, I would say to broaden your horizons and start looking at manufacturing. The manufacturing might not be the 100 or 1,000x type return that you could get from a web company or a new drug, but if the more types of these type of factories that we have out there, especially doing high tech type of manufacturing, I think the more resilient the economy in the state will be, and ultimately will be better off as a state.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think we are fortunate that we do have huge companies like GE here. So the talent exists here. We have to give that talent a reason to stay here. And so more support for small companies as they grow in manufacturing will certainly do that. And I mean, we're fortunate, like, you can take folks who don't have a previous history in this line of work and you can train them.
Yeah.
So, if we had the resources to do that, and we'll just continue doing it, we're already doing it, but it would be a lot easier to be able to bring more and more folks in. And, there's career progression. Maybe you do, electrical engineering in a van company for a couple of years, and then you go on to go and work at GE. So yeah, I completely echo that. We've got the beginnings of something great here. Certainly in Cincinnati, and I know Columbus, there's huge investment going in Columbus in manufacturing already, and we don't want to lose all that talent to Columbus either. So yeah, I do think that we're in the heart of something, and at the beginning of something really special.
Yeah. And thanks to the O.H.I.O fund, like it's a testament to the thesis that you guys have put together, to be doing investments in our wheelhouse. It's been just a tremendous success, and I think I'm a little bit biased, but I think it's the right way to go. I think you guys have the right idea for how to help foster a resilient and diverse economy for the future of the state.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Certainly appreciate those kind words.
You gave us money to build our company, so
Well, with that, I'll ask a very softball closing question. Which would be, if you could take a remote van anywhere in the state of Ohio for a week, where's your hidden gem? Where are you going?
Oh man, well, I may have an answer to that, which is, so I grew up outside of Mansfield.
Yeah.
And I'd have to look it up on a map, but there was a place we used to go called Camp Glen Taylor, which I have very fond memories of. Every once in a while I'll look it up on Google Maps. And there's a lake there where I learned how to canoe, and I would assume it's still there. It's probably been 35 years, maybe 40 years since I've been there. But if I could just drive a van to that lake and hang out for a bit with a canoe and, some candy from the 80s and some Garbage Pail Kids, that would make me happy.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to go to Hocking Hills. So that intrigues me, getting down there and seeing the caves, and but just generally just to get out of the city at any opportunity is what I'd love to do. Go with my wife and just get some much needed relief from this all the time. It can be a bit much. But definitely. Yeah. There's so much to see actually around here.
Yeah. Well, those are both awesome answers. Daryn, Tony, I just want to thank you for taking the time, sharing your story, and hosting us in your awesome facility here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we loved having you guys here. Appreciate it.
If people had anything they wanted to follow up with you about, or where would you direct them?
Yeah, probably just to the website, remotvans.com, remotevans.com. There's all sorts of information.
All the socials.
Yeah, we're social.
That Facebook group.
Yeah, Facebook group. Yeah, we've got the Rolling Nomads on Facebook.
The Rolling Nomads.
It's an awesome resource. If you're ever interested in exploring van life, that I would say is a one-stop shop. You go in there and just start talking to people who are currently riding around the country in our vans. It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for tuning in to the O.H.I.O Fund Report. If you enjoyed this podcast, we'd love for you to leave a review on your favorite platform and subscribe to stay updated on all future episodes. You can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or directly on our website at theohiofund.com. The information shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment advice, an offer to sell, or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Past performance is not indicative of future results. The views and opinions expressed by our guests are solely their own and do not necessarily represent those of the O.H.I.O Fund. A guest's participation in this podcast does not imply an endorsement or an investment recommendation by the O.H.I.O Fund. This podcast may include conversations with leadership of a company in which the O.H.I.O Fund or its affiliated funds have an investment, and as such, financial interest in the success of this company, and there may be a conflict of interest in presenting information about the company and its performance. Any forward-looking statements or projections discussed during this episode are based on current expectations, assumptions, and estimates. Actual outcomes may differ materially due to a variety of risks, uncertainties, and other factors. Listeners should consult their own legal, tax, and financial advisors before making any investment decisions. For more information about the O.H.I.O Fund, including our Form ADV, other regulatory filings, and additional conversations, please visit theohiofund.com.